Chapter 12 Production and Growth. The purpose of Chapter 12 is to examine the long run determinants of the level and growth rate of output. Along the way, we will discover the factors that determine the productivity of workers and address what governments might do to improve the productivity of their citizens. As we all know, economic prosperity as measured by GDP per person varies substantially around the world. The average income in the world's richest countries is more than 10 times that in the poorest. Because growth rates of real GDP also vary substantially, the relative positions of countries can change dramatically over time. In addition, the standard of living depends on an economy's ability to produce goods and services. Productivity, in turn, depends on the amounts of physical capital, human capital, natural resources, and technological knowledge available to workers. As shown in the table, data on real GDP per person for 13 countries during different periods of time reveal that living standards vary a great deal between these countries. Growth rates are also reported in the table. China has had the largest growth rate over time, 2.56% per year on average. Please be advised that a 1 percentage point change in a country's growth rate can make a significant difference over several generations. Because of different growth rates, the ranking of countries by real GDP per person changes over time. In the late 19th century, the United Kingdom was the richest country in the world. In our recent time, real GDP per person is lower in the United Kingdom than in the United States. Government policies can try to influence the economy's growth rate in many ways. By encouraging saving and investment, which can help increase capital stock, encouraging investment from abroad, which can help increase foreign direct investment, fostering education, promoting good health, maintaining property rights and political stability, allowing free trade, and promoting the research and development of new technologies, which can help increase research and development (R&D). Let's define the concept of productivity. It is the quantity of goods and services produced from each unit of labor. This was discussed in Principle number 8. A country's standard of living depends on its ability to produce goods and services. A production function describes the relationship between the quantity of inputs used in production and the quantity of output from production. The production function generally is written like this: y equals AF LK HN, where y is output, A reflects the technological knowledge, L is the quantity of labor, K is the quantity of physical capital, H is the quantity of human capital, N is the quantity of natural resources, and the F function shows how inputs are combined to produce output. How productivity is determined is as follows. Physical capital per worker denoted as K over L. Human capital per worker denoted as H over L. Natural resources per worker denoted as N over L. And technological knowledge denoted as A. Let's delve more into the components of the production function. Physical capital, K, is the stock of equipment and structures used to produce goods and services. For example, Jenny will catch more fish if she has more fishing poles. Human capital, H, is the knowledge and skills that workers acquire through education, training, and experience. For example, Jenny will catch more fish if she has been trained in the best fishing techniques or as she gains experience fishing. Natural resources, N, is the inputs into production that are provided by nature, such as land, rivers, and mineral deposits. For example, Jenny will have better luck catching fish if there is a plentiful supply around her island. Technological knowledge, A, is the society's understanding of the best ways to produce goods and services. For example, Jenny will catch more fish if she has invented a better fishing lure. This also means that if we want to examine output per worker, we could divide the production function by L and we would get the following. Y over L equals AF 1 K over L H over L N over L. This shows that output per worker depends on technology, the amount of physical capital per worker, K over L, the amount of human capital per worker, H over L, and the amount of natural resources per worker, N over L. Many production functions have a property called constant returns to scale. This property implies that as all inputs are double, output will exactly double. This implies that the following must be true. xy equals AF, XL, XK, XH, XN. If x equal to 2, that means if inputs are double and if the outputs are double, we can say that the production function exhibits constant returns to scale. Now let's discuss economic growth and public policy, focusing on saving and investment in capital stock. Because capital is a produced factor of production, a society can change the amount of capital that it has. To invest more current resources in capital, a society must consume less and save more of its current income. The growth that arises from capital accumulation requires society to sacrifice consumption in the present to enjoy higher consumption in the future. However, there is an opportunity cost associated with this. If resources are used to produce capital goods, fewer goods and services are produced for current consumption. In the short run, a higher saving rate can lead to a higher level of capital stock, productivity, and GDP growth. Whereas in the long run, a higher saving rate can lead to a higher level of productivity and income, but please remember that it does not lead to permanently higher growth rates in these variables. As seen in the figure, which illustrates how the amount of capital per worker determines the amount of output per worker, holding constant all other determinants of output. As the capital stock rises, the extra output produced from an additional unit of capital will fall. This phenomenon is known as the diminishing marginal product of capital. In other words, if workers already have a large amount of capital to work with, giving them an additional unit of capital would not significantly increase their productivity. This is evident in poor economies where the economy has a low level of capital. An extra unit of capital leads to a large increase in output. Conversely, in rich economies with a high level of capital, an extra unit of capital results in only a small increase in output. An important implication of diminishing returns is the catch-up effect, which is the property whereby countries that start off poor tend to grow more rapidly than countries that start off rich. When workers have very little capital to begin with, an additional unit of the capital will increase their productivity a great deal. Saving by domestic residents is not the only way for a country to invest in new capital. Investment in the country by foreigners can also occur, such as foreign direct investment occurs when a capital investment is owned and operated by a foreign entity. Foreign portfolio investment occurs when a capital investment is financed with foreign money but operated by domestic residents. Some of the benefits of foreign investment flow back to foreign owners, but the economy still experiences an increase in the capital stock, which leads to higher productivity and higher wages. Investment in human capital also has an opportunity cost. When students are in class, they cannot produce goods and services for consumption. In less developed countries, this opportunity cost is considered to be high. As a result, children often drop out of school at a young age. Because there are positive externalities in education, the effect of lower education on economic growth rate of a country can be large. Many poor countries also face a brain drain, that is, the best educated often leave to go to other countries where they can enjoy a higher standard of living. After all, to foster economic growth, the government needs to do as follows: protection of property rights and promotion of political stability. They are the important ways that policymakers can improve economic growth. There is little incentive to produce products if there is no guarantee that they cannot be taken. Contracts must also be enforced. Countries with questionable enforcement of property rights or an unstable political climate will also have difficulty in attracting foreign or even domestic investment. Free trade. Some countries have tried to achieve faster economic growth by avoiding transaction with the rest of the world, often to protect infant industry. However, trade allows a country to specialize in what it does best and thus consume beyond its production possibilities. Research and development. The primary reason why living standards have improved over time has been due to large increases in technological knowledge. Promote technological progress. The US government promotes the creation of new technological information by providing research grants and providing tax incentives for firms engaged in research. Now it's time to take the quiz. Question number 1. Increases in the amount of human capital in the economy tend to what real incomes? Because they increase the worth of labor. As the question suggests, it makes more sense to choose answer B. Increases in the amount of human capital in the economy tend to increase real incomes because they increase the productivity of labor. Question number 2. Because capital is subject to diminishing returns, higher saving and investment do not lead to higher growth in the long run. So the correct answer is C. Question number 3. When the Japanese car maker Toyota expands of its car factories in the United States, what is the likely impact of this event on the gross domestic product and gross national product of the United States? The expansion will likely lead to an increase in production capacity, employment, and economic activity within the United States. As a result, the GDP of the United States will increase due to the additional production and economic activity generated by the expanded factory. While the expansion of Toyota's factory will contribute to the GDP of the United States, it will not have the same impact on the GNP of the United States. In fact, the income generated from this expansion will be counted as part of Japan's GNP. Therefore, the answer is C. GDP and GNP both rise, but GDP rises by more. Question number 4. Last year, real GDP in the imaginary nation of Oceania was $561 billion and the population was 2.2 million. The year before, real GDP was $500 billion and the population was 2 million. What was the growth rate of real GDP per person during the year? To calculate the growth rate of real GDP per person, we need to follow these steps. Step 1. Calculate real GDP per person for both years. For the current year, real GDP per person current year equals to real GDP current year divided by population current year. That is $561 billion divided by 2.2 million. That equals to $255,000. For the previous year, real GDP per person previous year equals to real GDP previous year divided by population previous year. That is $500 billion divided by 2 million. That equals to $250,000. Step 2. Calculate the growth rate of real GDP per person. The growth rate can be calculated using the formula. Growth rate equals to real GDP per person current year minus real GDP per person previous year divided by real GDP per person previous year times 100%. That is $250,000 minus $250,000 divided by $250,000 times 100%. That equals to 2%. Therefore, the growth rate of real GDP per person during the year in Oceania was 2%, and the answer is D. Question number 5. In recent decades, Americans have increased their purchase of stocks of foreign-based companies. The Americans who have bought these stocks will engage in what? Now let's break it down. When Americans buy stocks from foreign companies, they are investing in foreign assets. This type of investment is known as foreign portfolio investment because it involves purchasing financial assets like stocks and bonds from foreign entities rather than making a direct investment in physical assets or businesses. So remember that this is considered foreign portfolio investment, making the correct answer C. Question number 6. Each day, Sue works 8 hours and produces 7 units of goods and services. Mary works 10 hours each day and produces 10 units of goods and services. It follows what? Let's calculate their productivity. Sue's productivity is 7 units divided by 8 hours equals to less than 1 unit per hour. Mary's productivity, that is 10 units divided by 10 hours equals to 1 unit per hour. Therefore, it follows that Mary is more productive than Sue as she produces more units per hour of work. This comparison highlights the importance of considering productivity output per hour. So the answer is A. Mary's productivity is higher than Sue's. Question number 7. Consider the production function y equals to 3 function LKHN. Suppose function 10, 8, 6, 5 equals to 100 and function 30, 24, 18, 15 equals to 300. Does the production function have the property of constant returns to scale? Why or why not? To determine whether the production function y equals 3 function LKHN has the property of constant returns to scale, we need to check if scaling all inputs by a common factor results in output being scaled by the same factor. If we take the inputs LKHN by a factor of 3, that is function 3 times 10, 3 times 8, 3 times 6, 3 times 5, then it is function 30, 24, 18, 15 equals 300. Now we can verify whether the production function f scales the output by the same factor. Therefore, the production function y equals 3 function LKHN demonstrates constant returns to scale because when all inputs are scaled by a factor of 3, the output is also scaled by a factor of 3. Question number 8. Consider the production function y equals to 2 function LKHN. Suppose function 12, 10, 9, 7 equals 100 and function 24, 20, 18, 14 equals 180. Does the production function have the property of constant returns to scale? Why or why not? Again, here we need to check if scaling all inputs by a common factor results in output being scaled by the same factor. If we scale the inputs LKHN by a factor of 2, that is function 2 times 12, 2 times 10, 2 times 9, 2 times 7, then it is function 24, 20, 18, 14 equals to 180 less than 200. Now we cannot verify whether the production function f scales the output by the same factor. The output does not scale by the same factor of 2 when the inputs are scaled by 2. Therefore, the production function does not have the property of constant returns to scale. This production function is rather a diminishing returns to scale. Now let's undertake the case study. Case study number 1. Why are so much of Africa poor? The economic challenges faced by many African countries are complex and multifaceted, involving historical, social, political, and economic factors. Here are some key reasons that contribute to the widespread poverty in many parts of Africa, low capital investment, low education attainment, low productivity, restricted trade, poor health, corruption, and legacy of colonization. Case study number 2. Are natural resources a limit to growth? If the world has only a fixed supply of non renewable natural resources, then yes, let's compare today and the past. Look at Singapore and Luxembourg as a country with very limited natural resources but rich economy. In present days, due to technological advancements, we have modern cars with better gas mileage, newly built houses with better insulation and less energy to heat and cool, oil rigs that waste less oil during extraction, and recycling with non renewables to be reused. In the short run, natural resources prices are very volatile. In the long run, adjusted for inflation, these prices are stable or even falling.